Lee Marvin was born on February 19th, 1924, in New York City, to a family that had a mix of privilege and personal struggles. His father, Lamont Waltman Marvin, was an advertising executive and a World War I veteran, while his mother, Courtney Washington Davidge, hailed from a respected Virginia family. However, despite his well-established family roots, Marvin's early life was far from idyllic. His rebellious nature often led to trouble, and he was expelled from several schools due to behavioral issues. This restlessness set the tone for his future career as a gritty, tough guy on screen. His childhood troubles and defiance would later fuel the intensity and authenticity that became his hallmark in Hollywood. The impact of war. A turning point for Marvin's life took a pivotal turn during World War II when he enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps. His service in the Pacific Theater profoundly affected him, especially during the Battle of Saipan, where he was wounded by machine gun fire. This injury left him with physical scars, but also deep emotional ones. The horrors he witnessed during the war gave his performances an unshakable realism. Marvin's tough exterior was not an act. It was a product of his life experiences, including the trauma of war. For his bravery, Marvin was awarded the Purple Heart, and his experiences would shape the raw, unflinching characters he would portray on screen for years to come. The humble beginnings of Lee Marvin's acting career. After the war, Lee Marvin initially struggled to find direction, taking on a variety of odd jobs, including working as a plumber's assistant. But his passion for acting eventually led him to pursue a career in theater in upstate New York. Acting came naturally to Marvin, thanks to his commanding presence and distinctive voice. His raw authenticity set him apart, and he soon transitioned to television and film in the early 1950s. Marvin's early roles mostly consisted of playing villains, soldiers, or tough guys, characters that were a far cry from the traditional leading man. Yet, his presence on screen was magnetic. Audiences were drawn to him because of his realness, never pretending to be tough, but simply being tough. Marvin's breakthrough, The Wild One and Beyond. Lee Marvin's breakthrough came in the late 1950s and early 1960s with films like The Wild One, 1953, Bad Day at Black Rock, 1955, and The Big Heat, 1953. In these films, his intense performances and menacing energy captured the attention of Hollywood. But it was his role in Cat Ballou, 1965, that truly cemented his legacy. Playing both the drunken gunslinger Kid Shalene and his evil twin, Marvin showcased a surprising flair for comedy, winning the Academy Award for Best Actor. This role balanced his tough image with self-deprecating humor, revealing that beneath his hard exterior was a man who was not afraid to laugh at himself. Marvin's ability to mix grit with humor made him one of the most versatile actors of his time. Lee Marvin, a leading man with grit and depth. By the 1960s and 1970s, Lee Marvin had firmly established himself as one of the most iconic leading men in Hollywood. His roles in films like The Dirty Dozen, 1967, Point Blank, 1967, Hell in the Pacific, 1968, and Paint Your Wagon, 1969, showcased his immense versatility. Marvin could effortlessly shift from a hardened soldier to a vengeful hitman to a reluctant anti-hero. He brought a unique authenticity to every role, often portraying characters with a mixture of grit, vulnerability, and depth. Directors like John Borman and Robert Aldrich tapped into his range, allowing Marvin to create characters that were multifaceted and complex. His ability to deliver raw, emotionally charged performances made him one of the defining actors of American cinema. Second marriage to Pamela Feely, stability and struggles. In 1970, 3 years after his divorce from Betty, Lee Marvin married Pamela Feely, a woman who had been a part of his life for several years before their marriage. Unlike his first marriage, which took place while Marvin was still climbing the ladder of success, his second marriage occurred after he had already become a Hollywood legend. Pamela, often described as elegant and strong-willed, provided a stabilizing influence in Marvin's later years. Though their relationship was not without turbulence, Marvin's notorious drinking and volatile temperament sometimes led to disputes. They managed to maintain a strong and supportive bond. Pamela stood by him through professional triumphs and personal challenges, including a very public legal battle with Marvin's former companion, Michelle Triola, over a palimony case. Lee Marvin and the legal drama, Michelle Triola and palimony. One of the most talked about events in Lee Marvin's later years was his legal battle with Michelle Triola, who famously sued him for palimony in the late 1970s. The case became one of Hollywood's most sensational legal dramas, attracting media attention and public scrutiny. Pamela Feely, Marvin's second wife, remained supportive during this difficult time, standing by his side as the case unfolded. Despite the legal turmoil, Pamela's loyalty and strength helped Marvin navigate through the intense media spotlight. The case was just one of many challenges Marvin faced in his later years, but through it all, Pamela proved to be his steadfast partner, offering him the support he needed to weather the storm. Marvin's reflection on Cary Grant, A Tale of Two Stars, Lee. Marvin was known for his blunt and candid opinions about his contemporaries in Hollywood, and one of the names that often came up was Cary Grant. To the public, Cary Grant was the epitome of class, elegance, and charm, the perfect gentleman of Hollywood. However, Marvin's view of Grant was far more nuanced and revealing. In interviews, Marvin spoke about Grant with a mix of admiration and blunt honesty. He respected Grant's professionalism and discipline, acknowledging that he understood the power of image better than anyone Marvin had ever met. Grant could walk into a room and make everyone believe he had been born in a tuxedo. To Marvin, this ability to control his public persona was both impressive and somewhat alien. The intricacies of Cary Grant's persona. While Marvin respected Cary Grant's polished image, he also recognized the emotional cost of maintaining such a persona. Grant, born Archie Leach, worked hard to bury his humble beginnings and the emotional turmoil he carried with him. Marvin noted that if you looked closely enough, you could see the struggle in Grant's eyes, the conflict between the charming, suave image he projected and the man he truly was. Marvin, who had lived a life filled with rawness and authenticity, found it difficult to relate to Grant's polished perfection. To Marvin, the restraint and detachment that Grant exhibited off-screen seemed almost incomprehensible. Yet, Marvin also acknowledged Grant's undeniable star power, his ability to captivate an audience with nothing more than a smile. The unlikely friendship between two Hollywood icons. Marvin's reflections on Cary Grant were not born out of envy or resentment, but rather out of a deep understanding of the differences between them. Marvin, who had endured the brutality of war and the chaos of fame, valued authenticity above all else. Grant, on the other hand, embodied the ideal of Hollywood perfection, a man who had crafted a flawless public image. Marvin admired Grant's ability to maintain his cool, yet he also saw the toll it took. Despite their differences, Marvin had immense respect for Grant's talent and charisma. In the end, Marvin concluded that both men were true to themselves, even if they came at it from completely different angles. Grant represented the dream of perfection, while Marvin embodied the truth of imperfection. Lee Marvin's final years, a quiet end. In his final years, Lee Marvin's health began to decline. In December 1986, he was hospitalized for over 2 weeks due to complications from coccidioidomycosis, a fungal infection that led to serious respiratory problems. Marvin's long history of smoking and drinking had weakened his immune system, making him more vulnerable to the disease. Doctors treated him with steroids to help with his breathing, but the steroids had severe side effects, leading to a major intestinal rupture that required emergency surgery. Despite his declining health, Marvin faced his final years with the same stoic toughness that defined his entire life. He remained fiercely independent and maintained his dry humor until the end. Lee Marvin's passing. The end of an era. On August 29, 1987, Lee Marvin passed away at the age of 63 from a heart attack. His death marked the end of an era in Hollywood, an era when leading men were expected to embody raw, unrefined masculinity. Marvin was a man who lived life on his own terms, both on and off the screen. His authenticity, honesty, and professionalism left an indelible mark on the film industry. Fans, colleagues, and filmmakers mourned his passing, remembering him not just for his iconic roles, but for his unflinching integrity and the realism he brought to every character he portrayed. Lee Marvin may have been a tough guy on screen, but off-screen, he was a man who had lived a full, authentic life.